from within. It's great to have Alex getting promoted and coming up with the rank, and even better to have his family here. But you don't know families. Most important, so it's great to have it. And we'll see who's all behind that. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. All right, with that, let's move to citizens' comments. Tonight, do we have a lot of people online, Caitlin?
Let me, we do have quite a few online, and I need to read some names into the record as well. A written comment that we've already received.
Okay, so with that, I'm gonna citizens' comments will be 2 minutes tonight, since we have quite a few people and we try to keep our meetings within 2 hours. So with that, we're gonna open up the floor for citizens' comments. And the way we do that is we'll first go online. If anyone has any comments online, and we ask that you raise your digital hand, and you'll be recognized by Caitlin and brought into the panel, and given 2 minutes to address the council. If you are speaking on items 11A, the budget, or the 11B, the rezones, we do ask you to wait for your comments during those timeframes. So with that, is there anyone online who wishes to provide citizens' comments?
I don't see any hands raised. Again, if you are online viewing this meeting, just go ahead and raise your digital hand and I'll bring you in to speak. Nope, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, so in person here, I have Aaron Van Ree. Aaron, if you'd approach the microphone, please. And after Aaron will be Julia McCord.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Erin Van Rye. I live at 9910 North Davies Road. As a native of Lake Stevens area my entire life and a current resident of North Davies Road, I am concerned that the views of the lake and mountains are not being protected. The lake and mountain views are one of our most important assets. Lake and/or mountain views adds to our property values. We've had cars stop and pull up with cameras and take pictures of our view. It's pretty spectacular. The views that we have up Davies Road, and there's many views all around our lake. This is a special place with families who have lived here for generations. Large homes that block the view of others have no place on Lake Stevens. My neighbors, Mitch and Rich, who are here tonight with us, have documentation when they purchased their home that no one could build over 25 feet in front of them. This should be honored. Lake Stevens is a special place, and I understand that there are beautiful homes around this lake. But we should respect other residents' views. There is room for all of us to be able to enjoy Lake Stevens. Council, if you could please consider view preservation and imposing height restrictions and add that to the city code and ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Aaron. And Julia. Caitlin, are you running the timer?
I'm gonna run it and I'll call it. Yep.
And after Julia, we'll have Mitch
My name's
Lambert. Go ahead, Julia.
Mitch or me?
I want you for now,
Okay.
and then we'll want the chapter.
But handicapped, I have hearing aids, but I'm still quite deaf. So, excuse me. Anyway, I wanted to speak about you guys entertaining a height restriction. I've lived in Lake Stevens all of my life, and in fact, I currently live on the property that I grew up on. My parents came here in the 40s. We live in a beautiful place. Lake Stevens has done a beautiful job in restoring this property. I enjoy it quite often with my grandson. So I would like you to think about others around the lake as well, that we work all our lives and we live in our sanctuary, especially important in these times. And all of us want to enjoy the view. So I hope that you would really consider protecting our views around the lake and putting the height restriction back down to 25 feet. Thank you.
You, Julia. And Mitch Lambert. Is that correct, Mitch?
It is.
Perfect.
You did, Mitch. Good evening. I'm Mitch Lambert. We live on 9903 North Davies Road. Over here. The reason I'm here tonight is to ask the city council to consider amending the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance to protect views of beautiful lake and mountains. This would also involve adjusting the 35-foot maximum limit on shoreline buildings in our shoreline master plan. We should be protecting these views and not creating a wall of buildings around the lake. The city has done a wonderful job of opening the view of Lake Stevens from the old town through North Cove Park. This viewscape is incredibly valuable. I have a personal interest in this and don't want others to experience the same potential barrier to views that we purchased years ago. We purchased our property for the view and knew that Snohomish County, prior to annexation, had placed a 25-foot limit on waterfront properties, protecting the view with purchase. Now, under Lake Stevens code, it appears the 25 limit will not prevail. Our 25-foot limit or requirements to provide reasonable viewscapes is critical to preserving the value of these views to anyone. I'm simply asking the city council to direct planning staff to develop ordinance to protect and preserve our views, just as the city did when building the North Cove Park. Keep the views no blockage. This would preserve our lake and mountain views for everyone. Please we cherish our views. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mitch. That's all the general citizens comments I have. And so with that, we'll move forward to.
Mayor, I'm
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Could I read into the record the comments that we received via email?
For general comments or for the.
Oh, they're for the public hearing. Yep. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Okay, you're good. All right, so with that, let's go to council business.
All right, Councilmember Tadgett.
I don't have any council business today.
Okay, Councilmember Jorstad.
Nothing for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Dickinson.
Just that I went to the senior center board meeting last week and it was great to hear the thank you for the extra money that we have allotted to them. But also they're doing a great job and come to the senior center board on December 3rd. They're having an event. Love to see you there for a festival of gifts you can buy to support the senior center. That was an advertisement, sorry.
All right, Councilmember Frederick.
Yes, last week I attended the County Leaders Conference that was held in Renton. And while I was there, I had an opportunity to have a conversation with representatives from Department of Commerce about potential funding opportunities for projects here in the city involving, things like roads, improvements to roads, sidewalks, and some of the smart city technology that we've kind of talked about in recent months.
Thank you. Councilmember Daughtry.
Well, it's budget season for the city and community transit and everybody else that we're involved in. So the community transit budget is being passed here shortly. One of the biggest things we have going on is we're looking at going into an all electric fleet. However, the problems around that are enormous. The amount of money it would take to actually accomplish that is something that I probably won't see in my lifetime. With all of the infrastructure that has to be put in. They're also looking at hydrogen type buses also. So that might even be more money. I don't know. It's hard to say. The other thing I'm involved with community transit is looking at what is bringing Everett Transit into the community transit fold. Basically, we're trying to figure out how to do that. I'm on the executive team that's working on that. As you can imagine, there are several different issues with that. You've got two different types of workers in there. Everett does it different than CT does it, and all the, it's really a mess. It's really hard to do. I cannot imagine doing it on any bigger scale than what CT is trying to accomplish, or CT Everett. The really interesting thing about it, though, in reality, is that it's really going to be up to the voters in Everett to decide whether we do it or not. We can come up with all the plans and actions that we want to try to come up with, but Everett has to actually go out for a vote and say whether they want to be a part of CT or not. So you'll hear more about that coming up in the news. But if you have questions about it, you can contact me and I can answer anything I can answer at that time. But that's what's going on with community transit.
Thank you. Nothing from me, Mayor.
Okay, great. I as well had the opportunity to attend the county leaders conference last week, and a lot of really good resources there and topics discussed. Also attended the Lake Stevens Education Foundation breakfast on Friday. It was a great opportunity to, or I'm sorry, it was on Thursday, and great opportunity to see that organization continue to give to our community and the projects that they are doing. And we also had a really good meeting today with CT was up here and talking about the pilot program that they're going to look to implement over this next year. They're currently doing it in the Alderwood area. It's kind of like a an Uber for CT. So really their rider, they said that their average is about 60 riders a day on that program, which is actually pretty impressive. So it makes me wonder what that will look like in Lake Stevens with our different sort of population than that Alderwood area. So be interesting to see how it turns out. Okay, let's move forward. Any department reports? Nothing. I don't have anything on my agenda for anybody. Okay. Well, let's move forward to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda, please?
Motion to pass.
Second.
You have a motion and a second to pass the consent agenda. Do I have any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And let's move on to public hearing 11A, which is the 2023 budget ordinance 1150. And we've already opened this hearing, correct?
No,
No, we have not opened. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that public hearing up, and staff, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, council. This is public hearing number 2, our second and potentially final public hearing for the 2023 budget. Nothing has changed since we proposed this budget 2 weeks ago at your last council meeting. We haven't made any changes. So this will be a brief summarization. So looking at our 2023 budget priorities, those have not changed. Mainly, we're looking to maintain our public and health safety and streamlining citywide processes and attracting and retaining highly qualified staff. Looking at our full summarized 2023 proposed budget, this is the same numbers that are included in your budget ordinance. As you can see, our revenues for 2023 are estimated at $40 million and our expenditures are slightly higher at 42.8. The majority of these, we have general funds, capital project funds, and some of our debt service funds. Again, these are our staffing recommendations for 2023 and what quarter we intend to hire the staffing and what positions are proposed by fund. So again, we are looking to hire an IT application analyst, principal lead planner, potentially in fourth quarter. That's a promotional position. We are changing the senior planner from part-time to full-time in quarter 1. Additional, we want to add 4 seasonal park FTEs. And then looking at our public works application or public works analyst again in quarter 2, and then our public works shop quartermaster, we did move out to quarter 4 at the suggestion recommendation of council. And then, as we mentioned, we do have police officer positions that are available, not included in the dollar amounts in the budget, but if they are available, we will go ahead and look to hire those. And then additionally, a grant writer. And these will come out of pandemic recovery funds at the directive of the council as well. Again, this is just a look at our organizational chart for 2023, color coded by when we intend to do the hiring and get that process started and completed. This is our recommended budget summary for additions. Again, we have it separated item proposed by department. The majority of this, we do have some placeholders in there for the sewer assumption. And then additionally, the majority of the rest of it is in public works. And as I mentioned previously, some items may change depending on what the need is as we move through the year. And then the next two slides are capital project summary budgets. These again have not changed. We are looking at doing quite a bit of capital projects. We are looking to complete capital projects that were started in 2021 and 2022. And then we did include our forecasted 2024 in here as well, although that's not actually included in the budget. As you can see, these are the color coded park or in yellow, and then the pink are the facility projects as well. As I mentioned, nothing has changed since the first public hearing. Oh my goodness, I never shared. Your co-host. I would love to share that. Yeah, that would be very helpful. Okay, thanks for somebody actually telling me that. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
Is it sharing now?
You should be able to. Hear. There we go. But yeah, something.
Barbara, for the sake of the audience, would you go ahead and start over?
I will, yes.
Thank you.
Second. Give me 1 second. I need to actually change my screen. I'm sure.
Taking it from the top.
That was not helpful. Screen share. Screen share. Okay. Here we go. So. Public hearing number 2. This is taking a look at our 2023 budget priorities, as I had mentioned, maintaining public health and safety, streamlining our processes and increasing our levels of service, and then attracting and retaining our highly qualified staff. This is what it looks like in our budget ordinance. This is our shows our beginning cash balances, our revenues and expenditures for 2023, and then our estimated ending fund balances. Leaving estimated $43.6 million in all funds at end of 2023. These are our staffing recommendations shown by quarter and by fund. So as you can see, we have a number of positions going through Q1. Those are the pink highlights. Q2 are green highlights, and then Q4. I guess we had peach, so this is more of a purple pink. And then, as I mentioned, those available police officer positions that we have in the budget as FTEs, but not actually as dollar amounts at this point. So this, you can see we are anticipating increasing our budget by approximately $1.1 million over the next year in staffing, cost of living, and compensation study dollars. This is our organizational chart, and it is color coded by when we intend to do the hiring. And this is a full citywide organizational chart here. This is the recommended budget summary of items included, and then items proposed by department in the chart. Additionally, we have some items that are not yet filled in 2022 that will roll forward into 2023. So those will not affect your overall ending fund balances in 2023. Those will increase your expenditure availability in 2023. And then here are your capital projects. The blue, those are street projects. So we have a number of street projects. The ones that are in red are not included in the budget currently, as we are waiting on grant funding. Once we get the grant funding approved, those will be added into the budget as well. And as I mentioned, there's a couple of roll forward projects in here as well. The 12th Street, 87th Road Alignment, and 79th Street Access Road. There's some funding left in those that will roll forward. The grayish color at the bottom, those are stormwater, surface and stormwater projects as well. And then here in the yellow, those are park projects. And then the pink are facilities. So we have a security camera project. We have the museum in here. Again, we're waiting on some grant funds for some of these projects that we will add into the budget as we get the grant funded. So at this point, we will take public comment and then get any information from council.
Actually, are there any questions for staff?
When does the TBD get represented in the budget?
We actually just discussed this, the mayor and I were talking about bringing forward something to council as our next steps. Informing Department of Revenue and doing those things. And we will bring forward sort of a step-by-step process at our next workshop and kind of let you know what that is. We will be bringing forward the budget amendment likely in early 2023 to add the funding, the projected funding and those projects that we already have in there that council has earmarked for the TBD funding.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
No question, just a comment. Well, actually, two comments, Barb. Thanks for the presentation. As always, in my entire time in the council, it's been very easy to follow everything in all of the budget presentations. Just having a basic knowledge of the finances, and I appreciate that. In particular with this budget, I think the grant writer position will certainly yield revenue, yield dividends for the city. Having some capacity to specifically focus on generating additional revenue for our infrastructure projects. So pretty excited to see how that moves forward.
I also just have a quick comment. I feel like I've been a part of a few budget processes so far. This one felt there were some tricky elements that we haven't faced before, and we sent questions back multiple times. And I just appreciate staff's work in incorporating those comments, coming back to us with different scenarios. I think it's been a real collaborative process to come to this place, and I appreciate your work.
Barb, this is Councilmember Tagent. Just want to let you know, great job. Been through the budget cycle many times over. I think it's a lot of give and take this year, especially with positions and parks and everything else that goes along. Just great job.
Mary?
Yes, I just want to echo everything you just heard in every way from all directions. Good job.
Any other comments for Barb? Just for staff, for the audience's recognition, I don't want you to think that they just saw the budget tonight and they're just stamping it. This has been a several month long process, and it's been arduous, but it looks like we're looking good on it. So with that, let's open for public comments on just this topic, just the budget. I don't have any green sheets. Is there anyone online who would like to raise their digital hand for public comment on just the budget item?
I don't see any digital hands raised.
No digital hands raised. Is there anybody in the public who'd like, in the audience, I talk on just the budget? All right, seeing no hands, no virtual, no real hands raised. We'll close the public hearings portion. Look for further comments from staff. Barb?
No, I just want to echo everything that the council has said. This has been a collaborative process, and we have gone back and forth a number of times, and it was a very tricky budget season. You only have limited resources, and you all do your diligence to verify where the funding is going and what funding we have and how can we increase the funding without putting a damper on the citizens. And I really appreciate the collaboration that we had this year.
All right, great. I'm looking for any other questions for staff and or discussion within the city council about the budget. Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and I'll look for an action from the council.
Move to approve 2023 budget ordinance 1150.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve 2023 budget ordinance 1150, and I have a second. Do I have any discussion on the motion?
I guess I'll just have a comment. I've made my comments previously. I will be voting no on the budget. And I've stated previously, I don't believe that our public works and our police officers should be treated in a disparate fashion than the non-represented folks, especially with regard to the cost of living adjustment. And so I do appreciate all the other positive comments that have been shared. And I agree with the collaborative process, and I appreciate the mayor's thoughtful consideration for how new positions are implemented. I don't know how we mitigate the disparity in the Teamsters and the Guild and the non-represented, but I would like to see something that reflects some respect, or at least from a financial perspective for the essentially the blue collar workers in our city.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote, please, on this.
Councilmember Daughtry,
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick,
Aye.
Councilmember Dickinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Jorstad,
Aye.
Council President Ewing,
No.
Councilmember Tagent.
Okay, looks like the motion passes. Thank you very much for all the hard work on the budget. Thank you, council, for going through the process with us, and we'll look forward to this next year and building the city. Let's move forward to item 11B, the 2022 comprehensive plan docket and associated rezones. I'll open the public hearing, and David.
All right, thank you, Mayor Gailey. David Levitan, Planning Manager. So we are here tonight for the public hearing to consider the 2022 comprehensive plan and associated rezones. That's ordinances 1152 for the comprehensive plan docket and ordinance 1153 for the associated rezones. So I'm going to do a brief overview just of the process. The Growth Management Act does allow for city initiated text amendments and map amendments once per year, as well as associated rezones, as well as implementing ordinances. So it's a type 6 land use application with the Planning Commission making a recommendation to the City Council. The Planning Commission did hold their public hearing on November 2nd and forwarded a recommendation, which is included as Exhibit A in both ordinances. The City Council did adopt the docket back on March 22nd. That included one citizen initiated map amendment. There was a second citizen initiated map amendment proposal that was not approved for the docket, but has been incorporated into the recommended action on 97th Drive Southeast, which is map amendment M3. And so that's something that has been accounted for. The docket includes very minor text amendments. So I'm going to give just a very brief overview of the text amendments and focus primarily on the city and citizen initiated map amendments and associated rezones. One of those map amendments is citizen initiated, and that was specifically from the Lake Stevens Brewing Company. So just kind of very brief overview of the text amendments. Most of these are basically just to provide updated information, updated demographics, reflect regional planning efforts, the buildable lands report and the land use elements. The most substantive additions as far as text amendments are to the parks element, which is text amendment T3, and that includes the addition of 2 new goals as well as underlying policies. That was developed by Parks Department staff. It was vetted by the Parks Board, and they recommended the addition of those 2 new goals and underlying policies. Those are specifically to assert parks and recreation as critical infrastructure, and then to expand active recreational facilities. The public services element is very minor changes proposed. The most notable is the adoption by reference of the capital facilities plans for both the Lake Stevens and the Snohomish school districts. So they adopted plans, new plans for the 2022 to 2027 period, as well as new impact fees. So the city needs to adopt that by reference as part of this ordinance. There are then just some minor administrative updates. And then there are a couple of amendments proposed to both the 20th Street Southeast and the Lake Stevens Center sub-area plans. Those are tied directly to map amendments M1 through M3. That's what's driving the need, basically to reflect the updated maps, proposed land use and zoning designations. So there may be, depending on actions taken by the council, some refinements made to those. And I'm going to give a brief overview of the map amendments. I'm going to let Russ discuss primarily provide a little bit of additional background on the proposed Chapel Hill map amendment, which will be after this first one. So map amendment N1 was the citizen initiated proposal that's down on 20th Street. This is South Lake Stevens Road. This is 20th Street. So it includes 2 parcels that were proposed to be changed from a land use designation of high density residential to commercial with an associated rezone from RA12 to commercial district. The city staff, based on direction from the Planning Commission and City Council, had explored adding an additional property at 10610 20th Street Southeast. Then reached out to the property owner. The property owner has provided public comments to the Planning Commission. I know he is here this evening as well. He had requested to be removed from the boundaries of this proposed map amendment, so that was incorporated into the Planning Commission's recommendation. So as of now, map amendment M1 as proposed by the Planning Commission is just the 2 properties at 10510 and 10520, as well as the city right-of-way to the west of those properties. So basically this area right here is not a parcel, it's right-of-way, but the city felt that it would make sense to change that land use designation to provide a consistent commercial land use designation on the south side of 20th. And so this is map amendment M2. Russ, did you want to provide an overview of this one or?
All right, thank you, council, audience. Community Development Director Russ Wright, and I'll be talking about map amendment M2. So as part of the 2022 docket, we did include a change of the land use designation and zoning for this property to commercial. Just give some background on this property. This was annexed into the city at the end of 2010 when that came into the city. It had a commercial development. In fact, there have been applications for commercial development on this project that had been approved and subsequently were not constructed. The city went through an analysis of the sub-area plan and adopted a commercial or reaffirmed a commercial zoning for this property in 2012. And then the city went on to purchase this property in 2016 for public purpose with the intent of building a city hall and civic campus there. The city underwent several feasibility studies for the development of that site, 2017, 18, and 21. And the city found out that the projects were just not feasible at that point as far as the cost. And earlier this year, the council directed staff to surplus the property. A resolution was passed to surplus this property. And then subsequently, staff has marketed the property for sale through a public process and received some proposals back that the council is aware of. And the other things that we need to look at as we consider the zoning and land use designation for this property is the economic viability of the community as a whole. The city has a longstanding deficit for commercial property. And when the intended public use was also for commercial purpose, as in that it would be job producing. And so this is consistent with that underlying use, what it has been, and then identifying that the city needs to maintain the commercial or job producing properties that it has moving into the future. We also had an economist group come in 2021 and finish their work in 2022 that looked at the productivity of our sub areas, our commercial, our industrial lands, and gave some recommendations. And being that this is one of the largest intact vacant commercial properties, under their assessment, this property had high productivity for commercial purpose moving into the future. So all of those things came into the consideration to rezone this property from the public semi-public, which does allow commercial uses, to a fully commercial zone, the highest intensity zone that had been described by council for highest and best use of this property. Some other supplemental information to provide to the council as the community has expressed some ideas that maybe this property should be used for parks and open space. The city council adopts a park plan that is part of your comprehensive plan. The last major update was in 2019. We update that plan annually, but in the 2013 update, we established the level of service for parks that was affirmed in 2019. For the type of park that this would be, there's not a deficit in that area for a mid-sized park. There are some, mini parks that potentially could be built in the vicinity, but a large neighborhood park isn't warranted. The need that the city has identified is a larger mid-sized park in the southeastern part of the city. That's where our biggest deficit is. So just wanted to point some of those things out, and that has been identified in the adopted park plan, what the capital priorities are for parks. And as you saw in the budget presentation tonight, there are a considerable amount of other park projects in the queue under construction. And as we get to question and answer, I would be happy to answer any questions from the council after David finishes his presentation.
Great, thank you, Russ. So moving on to map amendment M3. So this was a map amendment that was added by recommendation by the Planning Commission. It's this area here on 97th Drive Southeast. So this is State Route 9. This is South Lake Stevens Road. This is 20th Street Southeast up here at the north. So this is a residential neighborhood. It was changed from residential to commercial back in 2019 as part of the annual comprehensive plan docket. So just about 3 years ago. It was something that was discussed by the Planning Commission during a July 20th work session and subsequently by the City Council at a September 6th work session. The initial direction from the City Council was to potentially defer any changes to this area so that we could take a more comprehensive look at the commercial land use needs in the city overall. The Planning Commission did get a public comment from the property owner of the only vacant parcel on that street, and I believe that she's in attendance via Zoom. And so this was a recommendation from the Planning Commission to go ahead and propose adding this back in as map amendment M3 to change the land use designation from commercial back to high density residential with the corresponding rezone from commercial district to RA12. And then just a little bit on the process and noticing for the docket. So the Planning Commission did hold 4 work sessions and the City Council held an additional work session on September 6th. All of the required noticing to the Department of Commerce has been issued. The city issued SEPA addenda for the comprehensive plan, the Lake Stevens Center sub-area, and the 20th Street Southeast Corridor sub-area. Public notice was issued for both the Planning Commission and City Council public hearings. This included signs that were posted on the sites of proposed land use map amendments and associated rezones, as well as postcards that went out to affected property owners, as well as those within 300 feet of affected properties. The city has received a number of public comments, received about 12 comments back in early November, either just before or immediately after the Planning Commission public hearing. 4 members of the public also provided oral testimony at that Planning Commission public hearing on November 2nd. As of 5 p.m. today, the city has received an additional 33 public comments. The majority of those are related to the Chapel Hill properties. All comments have been added to the packets or forwarded to the City Council for those that have been submitted over the last few days since the packet was published. So just a little bit on the focus of the public comments. There were 2 comments provided on map amendment M1. So that was the area on 20th Street Southeast, just east of South Lake Stevens Road. One of those was from the property owner of 10610 20th Street Southeast, who expressed his opposition to commercial development of the site and requested that his property be removed from the boundaries of the proposed map amendment. As well as another neighbor that also expressed concerns about commercial development of this site. There have been 40 individuals that have submitted comments in opposition to map amendment M2, as far as potentially changing the land use designation to allow for potential commercial development of the Chapel Hill properties. The majorities of those have called for that area to be created as a public park. And then, as I mentioned, map amendment M3, which was added back in by the Planning Commission. The city did receive a comment from the owner of 2229 97th Drive Southeast, which is a vacant parcel, which, because of the commercial land use designation, cannot be developed with a residential structure. So even though that is still currently a residential neighborhood, the residential homes in that neighborhood are considered legal non-conforming, and so a vacant parcel cannot develop with residential structures. So they were asking for it to be changed back to a residential land use designation and an associated rezone back to RA12. So as far as the findings and analysis, city staff has determined that the proposal meets the approval criteria for both comprehensive plan amendments, both map and text amendments, as well as the rezone criteria. The Planning Commission recommendation letter is included as Exhibit A for both ordinances 1152 and 1153. Planning Commission did recommend approval of the text amendments with the exception of potential revisions to T7 and T8 to reflect their guidance on the associated map amendments. And then if you'll notice in section 1 of both ordinances 1152 and 1153, it's written to concur, basically to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation with the exception of map amendment M2, which is the Chapel Hill properties. That was based on previous discussions and guidance provided by the City Council as far as the surplusing and potential sale of that property. The City Council would be able to revise section 1 of those ordinances to incorporate any changes to the map amendments or any other amendments to the Planning Commission's recommendation. So staff does recommend that the City Council approve ordinances 1152 and 1153 with any requested changes to the Planning Commission recommendation being reflected in section 1. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions for David or their staff?
Well, I do. First of all, to clarify, Lake Stevens Brewery, will they be, that's the group that's on 20th, right?
That's correct.
And is that going to be actually a business or is it just producing the beer in like a factory? Because I was not clear on that.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't received a specific development proposal.
Just curious because it would make a difference how disruptive it would be, I believe, to the community if they weren't running a proper brewery there.
That's
Or
actually
just
out of the
develop it.
scope of
I just
sort of
wondered.
the land use process, which is just to define what the land use could be. It could be any applicant for commercial use, and if that was consistent with that zone, that would be reviewed and administered at a different
Okay,
point in time.
good, thank you. And so then question 2 is, I believe there may be some people here today who care a lot about the Chapel Hill development and what happens there. And it's kind of interesting that we were talking about parks and recreation when I think we need to realize that the land there is not really a question. The land there is really belongs to the people of Lake Stevens. It doesn't belong to the city. It belongs to the citizens. But that's my personal opinion. And I just feel like if the people that live there are really not happy with the choice of putting development there like that, we need to take that, respect that. So there's the people that are going to be impacted are those citizens. So I just wanted to say, is there any way we can consider, maybe it's Ms. Garceau question, I'm not sure. But I think we need to have parks closer to the community where the main population of Lake Stevens lives. And that's just, I want to just say that. Anything you have to say?
So, so Mary, do you have a question?
Looking for a question, are you?
Yeah,
Okay. All right, no, I don't have a question.
if you have, do you need Sarah to talk parks or what do you?
I would love to.
Okay, I think
Yes,
Sarah can talk parks and what that might look like up there. Sarah, are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've reviewed the comprehensive plan, which the last round was done prior to my hiring, prior to the department. And by looking at the way the comprehensive plan was written and approved, 100%, Mr. Wright hit that square on with our level of service being met and the service areas. I think part of my review as I look forward is I'm going to be looking at what do we want that metric to look at? See, it's not a one size fits all when you look at national rec and park standards for one park per every 1,000 residents or whatever their metrics are. It's usually like 10 acres per 1,000 residents and split along those. I think our service levels are good. Looking at the distribution in that neighborhood, I do see the large amount of residents encompassing all sides, but when you zone in, each of those do have a private playground or private park area that served their residents. So the question is, looking at, do those residents have a nearby playground or park? My short answer would be yes. If you're looking at more larger parks that people are going to drive into, that would be something else we consider. With looking at the current comprehensive plans, those things are met. So unless we're going to change the way we do the comprehensive plan by not drawing pure circles, but looking at zones and crossing highways and changing the way that we're measuring those, I think that would be a future thing. Currently looking at the property, it would only be a 3-acre park. With a 3-acre park, you can look at that. It's essentially the same size as the green field out here. It's the same size as the parking lot at Lundin. And so when you look at how much stuff you can squeeze into that, if it's not going to be a very large park, it'll be a smaller size park. And so I think that that's a question that we have to look at as we advance down the road with parks. But I do see it's also close to your economic development. It's close to the businesses. And so by that, I understand the proposal and why it would not be recommended currently to be a park. I hope that helps.
yes, well, I appreciate you answering the question. I do. Thank you.
Yes.
So, sir, I've got a question. So I live on the west side of the city. What percentage of our population is west of Highway 9? And what percentage, and I realize I didn't give you a fair question ahead of time, so I apologize. What percentage of our park capacity is on the west side versus the east side of Highway 9?
Well, I think that's definitely trying to see if you're talking about mini parks, neighborhood parks.
City owned.
The city owned in general. I would say that at first glance, we definitely have more on the west side and on the north side. But we have a lot less as you go east. And I can get firm facts and I can look into that and give you a more detailed answer later.
Okay, that's great. I just think that Frontier Heights Park is, I think, the only substantial park on the west side that I'm aware of, and that's still being developed.
There's
That is
Caballero
neat.
Hill Park and then the 20th Street Park will be under development next year. So there are other substantial parks on the west side of them.
And I think it is important to look at overall level of service. You have to consider if there's a playground at a school that's open after hours, then that is something that still serves the public. And so we have to make sure that we look at the level of service for the city as a whole and that the city isn't duplicating services that are right next door. And so that is going to be part of my assessment as I move forward too.
Yeah, maybe a broad, I don't want to be myopic, but a broad perspective, and I'm sure you're working on that. So that would be helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, no questions for staff. We'll move into. I'll go ahead and open the floor for public comments. Public comments will be just on this rezoning subject. And I have a couple of green sheets in front of me. I do want to open up, first of all, to those on the digital side. And we'll be 2 minutes on this public comments. Do we have anyone online?
Yeah. Yes, someone just raised their hand. We can set you.
Okay, if you want to control who's in and out on that, that'd be great.
Just get my timer ready. Okay, so it looks like, sorry, they're going up and down. So Christy Layton has her hand up. Christy, I'm going to allow you to talk and just let me know if you're having any issue with audio.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm terrible with technology. I already submitted a letter, so I just want to make sure that you guys have all received it. Or should I read it to you now?
I remember hers.
Okay, yep.
We have yours, Christy.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we have Mary. No last name.
Yes, yes, I have a question.
Mary,
Does that,
sorry, Mary,
does
what was
that-
your last name?
oh, BERG. I sent an email letter today. But my question is, doesn't have to be a park, but that is a residential area. Can it just remain residential and not commercial? Commercial's just around the corner. That's okay. But if you're going to open it to commercial on that corner, it's residential. And I'd like you to keep it residential. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mary.
Anyone else in the waiting room with their digital hand would like to speak? Just go ahead and raise it so I can see you. Nope. Okay, I think that's it.
All right, great, thank you. And then we have some folks in the audience. And just so you know, on the audience side, we won't answer questions. We just listen to the comments, just so don't get offended if we don't answer your question, which it's not the process. Do you have a green sheet? No. Okay. Do you want to grab a green sheet if you want to talk on this subject? All right, so with that, let's start with Lindsay Lagasa. Can't tell if that's an A. Did I say it right, wrong?
No.
Okay. So Lindsay, we're gonna go 2 minutes. If you would say your name and address, and then after Lindsay's gonna be Colin Krager. Okay, go ahead, Lindsay.
All right, so it's Lindsay Legazpi, which is a Spanish Basque last name.
Oh, I love it. My whole family's mother's side's all Basque. Let's talk.
So this is a comment regarding map amendment M2. The city of Lake Stevens has lost its way. The area of 99th Avenue Northeast and Chapel Hill Road is in great need of a public space for the residents of a very densely packed area. The houses there are very close together and most have no yards whatsoever. The city of Lake Stevens authorized the development of these single-family condominiums over the last 10 to 15 years, but does not appear to have factored in the need for some open public space for the residents. Daily, I observe phalanxes of school buses picking up and dropping off school children. They play on the streets, but have no local park within safe walking distance. Has anyone ever counted how many children live there? I estimate about 100 in that area. If someone walks the steep Chapel Hill Road that leads to Davis Beach, they are in fear of being hit by fast-moving cars since there is no sidewalk. My earnest wish is for the city of Lake Stevens to put our citizens first and provide a park where children can play safely, adults can gather, and dogs can be exercised. Changing the zoning of the property to commercial makes no sense. Please do right by our community. I tried to give my input in the online 11th.
That's 2 minutes.
2nd of November meeting, planning commission meeting, but there was no sound. I went to the city offices to review the materials on the 18th of November, but they were not made available to me. I understand the city of Lake Stevens is looking at its bottom line.
Mayor, that's 2 minutes. I'm so sorry.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Yep, that's.
Yeah, if you just wrap it up for me.
What's that?
Just finish up for me.
That's our 2 minutes. Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't hear very well.
So you had 2 minutes and you've come to that time frame. So
Yeah.
just
Real quick.
real quick, last comments.
There must be more careful consideration of the community needs. Finally, can you please respond as to why for sale notices were put up on the property as early as 10/25?
Thank you, Lindsay. Next I have Colin, and then we'll go with Patrick O'Connor.
Yeah, and you guys, I'm sure all read my chapter book I sent by email, so I thank you for that in advance. That'll let me keep it kind of short here. And thanks for everybody who came out to support this. I'm here to talk map amendment M2. Thanks for people coming out who may be here to support that. Kind of what I just want to very briefly summarize what my previous public comments that were sent in. And the city of Lake Stevens originally, when we were looking at this lot for City Hall, asked for public comments on what we wanted to see there. And there was a spectrum that went from pure City Hall with public space amenities to a little bit of commercial, right? And what residents responded is, we want this all public space. And come, they're understanding budget concerns, and the process that you guys have gone through in February retreats and in August is, now there's this nuclear option that is the furthest from what your residents originally considered. And there's no track record of any exploration of the region between, right? If you ask any citizen who participated in that original survey, if they'd rather see partial commercial or the city fully hand this over to be a commercial development, I have no doubt at the answers you've received. This lot also serves as a really important transition between the commercial regions further to the west and the neighborhoods, the high density residential. And there are maybe we need park quotas, but a really important thing that we need to consider as we transition towards what we want to be Lake Stevens Center and a high commerce district. This is right next to a transportation hub, right? This is right next to CT, and this is a walkable area. This is a region where people are least likely to have cars, where you have the highest density residents, and that means that walkable parks are needed. This is a region of Lake Stevens that is not a car-based neighborhood. My family, my wife, my 3-year-old.
And that's 2 minutes.
Yeah, we walk everywhere from this neighborhood. So it's a different type. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Colin. I've got Patrick O'Connor and then Albert Lansing.
So very much. I really appreciate this opportunity to comment on it and the neighbors. And I simply also agree that for me, that is just next door to the property in question. I'm thinking about the kids area. I'm thinking that it would be good to have a park, even though 3 acres may seem very small. I believe that for those of us who think that 3 acres would be phenomenal. And again, to compliment what Colin said, it would enhance the overall neighborhood, the interconnector between the commercial area and the residential. And again, I love Lake Stevens, I love that neighborhood, and I would love to have a public park there, or at least not the commercial stores. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got Albert Lansing next and then Jason Bishop.
I live at the property 106 and 23 southeast that was proposed to be added to the commercial area. The area that you're turning commercial is largely swamp. There's a holding pond on the corner with this
There's a street and there's a swamp right next to it. And then the property for the brewery. And then my property. The area is totally residential right now. And it's just doesn't seem like it's proper to move in a commercial zoning into a residential area. And the other thing is the traffic there is horrible. You have 20th Street coming into 2 lanes from 4. And it winds up kind of a road race sometimes where people want to get ahead of each other rather than merge. There's been like 5 or 6 accidents right at the corner of my house. And the one that really got to me was a fellow that was a motorcycle car accident. He's paralyzed from the waist down. I saw him about a year later. He got paralyzed on a motorcycle. There's a lot of kids that go walking up and down that street. And they can't get to the sidewalk because of the side from the south side.
That's 2 minutes.
So they're walking down the east side where there's no sidewalk. It just isn't set up to have that zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. I've got Jason Bishop and then Frank Monkman.
You got it.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Without going back or rehashing anyone else's comments, I'm just here to speak in opposition of the rezoning of the property on 99 Chapel Hill. We live on First Street, which is the forward-facing street to Chapel Hill. As one of the staffers had expressed earlier, there is a park that is in the far northeast corner of that area. However, that is a private park. It is a community park for that neighborhood back there. If you've ever been back there, there's 2 swings and there's a slide. In that entire neighborhood, including us on 99, on First Place, that entire area is 9 acres. There's 99 homes crammed in that area. And that's the kids, cramming that many people into a little bitty area like that, a private park, really doesn't do anything justice. Public land, I was excited when we moved here to see that was going to be used for city hall or public benefit. And God's not creating any more public land. What we have is what we have. Lake Stevens is closing in. There's open areas are disappearing. I think this is an opportunity for you to do right by the citizens to keep this to the public benefit. If not develop it as a park, you could use it for other things. I mean, basketball courts, tennis courts, things like that we could all use to benefit from. I mean, I realize you're our elected representatives and you're here to represent us as the city, but we're the city. I think this would be an opportunity to listen to what we need and what benefits us and not developers. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jason. And I've got Frank and then Lee Everett.
Hello, Frank Monkman. I am speaking against the changes regarding Chapel Hill and 99 map M2. Now, you asked that we don't ask questions, but I asked the rest of you, how many people know where Stitch Creek is, or even what Stitch Creek is? Okay, you here, anybody want to? It's not a serious question, but it is one that is relevant. Stitch Creek runs right from this property. Stitch Creek is a fish protected creek. I have spoken with, and I don't know that she sent anything in yet, but Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife has been alerted to this. So have the tribes. This is the headwaters of Stitch Creek, right next to this piece of property. We've spoken about the residential areas. We all are interested in that, at least people who've spoken. And wanted to stay a residential area, but there's something else that needs protected, and you have the opportunity to start with that. If you don't and change it to commercial, you're going to have you're going to have the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife saying, you know, some of that property you might be able to do what you want. But there's going to be a setback. It isn't all open, even if you decide to make it commercial development. Public space, this mention of 3 acres not being that large. We have 2 acres, and I'll tell you, the people that live around us on 99 think that is a huge park. They love where we live. We've had on to it for a while. 3 acres is a lot of open space, and I encourage you.
And that's 2 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. And Leah.
I'm also in support of the planning commission recommendation to not follow through the reason for actually adopted. I believe that Chapel Hill, despite what the survey may have said about level of service, does not have level of service. There are so many homes, and somebody else here had this earlier, where the children are out. We walk almost daily. Carry about 2 miles a week with our dog, and there are kids out playing with us. There are pocket parks, but those pocket parks are fully maintained by the residents of those each units. I don't think that that's fair to put us for our public services onto those private parks and facilities. As far as walking to any kind of school parks, I'm not really currently aware of any, especially in that particular neighborhood, maybe on the other side of Highway 9, that's not feasible. So Davies is not really an option either because it doesn't have anything outside of the summer months. And even in the summer months, that park is absolutely well withstanding their own from everybody around, not especially. I believe the highest and best use for this land would be to maintain it as a city-owned property and develop it into a city use. The upcoming library, from what I understand, maybe the potential parks headquarters that's been recently purchased by the city of adjacent neighborhood. And I would just say it supports from what I've seen the element of the parks. If you already it's already stuck with utilities. It would be so much better use as a public park. 3 acres is huge for that neighborhood. There's
And that's 2 minutes.
and I guess I would say in closing, I'm not coming in this capacity, but as vice chair of some county planning commission, I've just got for our own docket. When I see this kind of minutes sent amongst the citizens and the planning commission, I would really hope there's our elections.
Thank you, Leah. Okay, that's all the comments I have for that. So I'll go to close the public comment portion.
Can I read my list of names into the record?
Yeah, if you would, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'll reopen, read first.
And I apologize if I mispronounce any of these names. We received quite a lot of written comment and it's been distributed to council throughout the last week or so, whenever they came in. So I'm going to read that list of names into the record. Kathy Nisayer, Ray Suba, Ali Avery, Earl Gray, Suzette Voita, Abe Martinez, Debbie Trentman, Kathy Himmel, Leah Zengage, Dana Bittinger, Carrie Johnson, Casey Strom, Brandon Kessler, Michael Termini, Cassie Gallagher, Cynthia Tamlin, Robert Strom, Kyle Stokes, Olivia Taylor, Steve Himmel, Michelle Overcash, Robin Taylor, Michael Suba, Emma Larkins, Colin Krieger, Mary Berg, Eileen Koska, Philip Schmidt, and Candace Barlow.
Okay, thank you. And so I'll go ahead and close public comments portion. Is there any further comment by staff?
Seeing none, any questions for staff by council? Seeing none, I don't want to forget you, Marcus. Do you have anything?
I don't, no, thank you.
Okay,
I have a question.
okay.
Just a quick question on the M1 map. There was a comment regarding traffic and sidewalks and kind of the way the roads are laid out. Would a rezone from residential to commercial create the need or the possibility that the traffic flow would be looked at and potentially revised based on that rezone?
So as part of our rezone evaluation and the environmental review, we do look at traffic impact and levels of service from the change in the zone. So that did occur with this project, and there wasn't a significant change. And then at the time of development, then we would reevaluate any new impacts for concurrency based on the scale of the operation and all of those specific site-specific factors.
Okay, thanks, Russ.
Any other questions? Any deliberation amongst the council? I'm not hearing anything.
I'm thinking.
That's not on my checklist. Thinking.
Hmm. I think I used up all my stuff last Tuesday, but this is a kind of quandary for me. I mean, I understand what we're trying to accomplish and why we wanted to accomplish it over there. I understand what everybody here is representing also. The problem that I'm having is going from Civic Center that we had really wanted up there to a community park, and how much it's actually cost us to do anything with this is really tough to get across. If we had a civic center there, it wasn't going to have anything with like park amenities there. Everybody was fine with that. Now that we're not going to build a building there, we want to put another building in that would be beneficial to the city in numerous ways, just not a park. So I'm having a hard time putting all that together. I hear what the citizens are saying. I really appreciate about people that put in their emails that blasted us with adjectives that are not mentionable here in a public meeting. And I'll be calling some of those people to ask them what they meant by those adjectives. Because I've only got 3 years left on the council, and I really don't care anymore. I don't like taking these adjectives that people send my way that are hurtful. I'm not hurt by it. It just pisses me off. And I don't get my feel. I don't allow my feelings to be hurt, but it does piss me off when people make generalities about what the council is doing and money in our pockets and things like that. My wife asked me again today where all this money is. I had to tell her I'm sorry, I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, be that as it may, I'm having a hard time putting this together on what is the right thing to do with this piece of property. I understand all the data and everything we've worked on for several months on this. I understand exactly where we've been, the whole thing from 2017 on. But I also understand what the citizens are asking for in that area. And I'm just having a hard time with it. I'm not really sure how I could vote on this right now. I'm not sure that I have enough information. One of the pieces of information that would be interesting to know would be if we had some kind of a 20,000 foot view of what a park amenity in that place would be, would cost us.
I think that we ran those rough kind of numbers this afternoon, Russ, Sarah.
Yeah, just based on the size of parks that we have developed, I would say that would be a and a half, maybe a $3 million park, because there would probably be a desire for active amenities, playgrounds, parking lot. But it's safe to say at least a $2 million build, and I would defer to Director Garceau if she has additional comments.
We did not discuss that earlier, but interesting enough, talking to my staff, my planner Jill, we also came up with the number 2.5 million. That would look like a parking lot, roughly 40, maybe 60 cars, depending on what we're trying to accomplish. A restroom at 150,000, a playground around 300,000, a shelter around 20,000. Add in your walking trails, your landscaping, engineering, permitting to get there. And I think in the end, you'd be about $2.5 million to build.
Yeah, so something to think about. That's not in the budget anywhere. It's not in any long-term plan anywhere.
And that doesn't take into consideration the ongoing maintenance and staffing and upkeep, correct?
Correct. Every time we add a park or develop the parks that are already on our plate, more staffing will be required.
Thanks.
Does a 3-acre park like to take care of cost-wise on a yearly basis?
Hey, Marcus, what you said again, you kind of cut in and out.
I was just curious what a 3-acre park costs to maintain a year.
Great question. We're working on that right now for the entire system, and I can bring that back to you. We're getting close with what I'm going to call regular maintenance requirements for a park, whether that be daily, weekly, monthly, or seasonally. So I don't have that number now, but I can obtain that.
Great. I would be curious to know. Thank you.
Mary.
So I promise I won't ask too many questions. I just want to say, I went to every single meeting when the Stowe's group was putting together the civic center and the library thing. I went to every meeting and I listened and read to every comment from the community, every one. And I'm thinking that this could be a spot where we go, instead of having people come after us, we could maybe go to the tribes or go to the conservation district and say, hey, can you help us? This is a way to celebrate, because actually one of the things we learned was during the time when the tribes were in this community before pre-Lake Stevens, they lived up there and they grew certain plants there. And what was going to happen was they were going to have like a trail where you'd go and you'd see, oh, this is what this is. And this was used by the tribes as a food. And the conservation district would, maybe we can get help from them too. I just think maybe what I'm seeing is that there's enough community interest that we can make this a positive for all of us. When don't we need it after this pandemic? That's just my thought. And Stitch Creek is a real thing there. I've been aware for a long time that Stitch Creek is what runs behind that. So just maybe we need to get outside of the box that we're in right now and start thinking in a bigger picture. And maybe we can make it happen. And I hope it's not $2.5 million. I sure don't have that money. I'm sorry, I can't hand it over to you. But I just see maybe a potential here, maybe a way to bring us back together rather than, it'd be great to have lots of money come from selling that property. That's just my thought.
I had every intention on remaining quiet on this issue, largely based on last week, but I think that this is a great example. This is a challenge for all of us on city council to question whether a good decision is necessarily a popular decision. We just adopted a budget that has revenues of $40 million and expenditures exceeding that by $2.8 million. If we were to talk about a $2.5 million park, on top of that, we're talking about, and I recognize parks are not a one-year project. We're talking about a project, we're talking about now expenditures exceeding, if this were done in a single year, exceeding our revenues of $5.3 million. That really escalates the timeline on when we would reach some really critical points in our fund reserves in our ability to continue to maintain existing parks. Continue the work that we have on the roads, and as pointed out, Councilmember Ewing voted against the budget and made comments on multiple occasions that we're already behind on things like road maintenance, because there isn't enough money in the budget going into those things, because we need to identify more revenue sources. And I think it's important that we do think outside the box and certainly hear what every single citizen has to say about this. And it's absolutely important. And I understand living in a community where you don't have direct access to parks or sidewalks or walkability, because that's exactly the environment that my children had growing up here in Lake Stevens. There are no sidewalks in front of my house, a park in walking distance, and even where there is, it's in a private park for another neighborhood. But I think this is a very real challenge that, if not decided tonight, really warrants immediate conversation to come to a resolution with how do we move forward with some of these issues. So I think it's important to share that, and I think I'm in a unique position to say it that bluntly, given current circumstances. This is a very real challenge. But I think the biggest challenge that this city faces is the lack of, unfortunately, land that can be used for commercial purposes to generate the sales revenue that we need to continue the projects that we need to have in this city. We need to be able to repair our roads. We need to be able to build sidewalks. So I'm not saying it has to be this, but I'm saying it's somewhere. If it's not this, then we have to identify what is the area, where is the land that can go towards these purposes.
If I may jump in, I'd also remind the council that we do own the property of Cedarwood. That is our number one legislative ask, to get that remodeled, re-engineered for much needed community space in that area. That's what, 4 or 5 blocks from this location. So there is some eye on additional community space in that area with that project.
I appreciate that reminder. I think, I echo Councilman Daughtry's sort of angst around this. I think for me, in this role, we're faced with competing needs every time we sit in these seats. And we have articulated really well by Councilman Frederick, we clearly have a need for more parks. We clearly have a really committed group of citizens who are here tonight who are letting us know that that's something that they need in their neighborhood. We have a need for looking at commercial revenue in our city, and we have dwindling places where that can be. And it's tricky. I think had we looked at a budget that included a $2.5 million park on this location, I feel confident that the council would have said no to that proposal, because we do not have the revenue to invest in a $2.5 million park. It's just not, it's money that is not there. So I would urge the council to consider all the work that's gone into these discussions and look at this plan that's been put forth and look at the work done by our city. But also, we need to hold very dear the feedback that we've gotten from the citizens, and we need to figure out how to ensure that we are providing revenue for our city and green space and open area for our citizens. I think we have to hold those two requests, those two needs that we have in our city, in equal value.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'll weigh in. So I'm probably the only member of the council that lives on a postage stamp lot. I live in Helena Hills, which are very similar to the lots where you folks live, where there are no very tiny lots. Our kids play in the street like your kids do, because there are no parks. Anywhere Lundin Park is a mile and a half away. And Frontier Heights is about a mile away. So I am certainly sympathetic to the concerns that you share. I also share the concerns of the council, balancing listening to what the citizens have wanted to share. I walk by that intersection several times a month with my youngest two elementary school age children. And so I'm aware of what goes on there. I'm familiar with that area. I doorbelled that neighborhood the first time when I lost my first race and the second time when I did better. So, but I also recognize that corner space is one of the remaining spots to generate revenue. For me, my problem, another failure, I believe, with the budget, even with the passing the TBD, we have a $700,000 a year deficit in road maintenance. And within 5 years, our costs will go up exponentially to repair the roads that we have if we do not find funds to pay for just the maintenance of the existing roads we have in Lake Stevens. And next year's budget cycle will be very problematic with the Teamsters and the with the Guild looking at probably a 20 to 25% increase in their wages over a 3-year contract is what the projections are likely to be. So we spent $1.1 million for the 49 non-represented staff for next year, which will be a compounding effect. And we're looking at a much higher number for next year. So I want to recognize the public comment, extraordinary amount of public comment and input. Also recognizing that we have very real financial responsibilities that we need to be aware of. So thank you, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Marcus, I think you may have had a comment.
I just want to say, I know that we worked really hard for the last 4 years, bringing North Cove Park on. We've been working on parks and walking paths down the power lines. I like the idea of having parks. I really hear what everyone's saying there. I'll echo what the rest of the council says. We have to balance out needs. And property was purchased to put a city hall. We've changed our mind. I think we have to look at our economic stimulus in this site. And all these parks, we're having a hard time, getting the power lines, and we want to finish out a whole nother park at Cavallero. There's still a lot of work there's still phases to do at Cavallero Park as well. So when you start balancing out these needs, we've got a lot of different power line parks. We've got Cavallero. We've got the park, I think that Steve mentioned, it's escaping me right across the way, that we took over from a community that couldn't take care of the park. So we've been a real champion for parks in our community. I hear what everyone's saying there, and I guess I would have to say unfortunately, I think we have to have a revenue stream for this to help take care of our balancing our needs and our budget.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and look for the council for action. You can approve, you can deny, or you can continue. And remember, we're talking about the entire comprehensive plan docket and associated rezones. I think the ordinances were 1152 and 1153.
Correct.
Okay.
Or we could amend.
You can always amend.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure.
But in order to amend, I need a motion first.
I'm not so sure I haven't reached my limit on amendments.
That was just on short-term rental, so you're welcome. So I love 52, 53.
Approve, deny, or continue?
Well, to get the process started,
Let's do it.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve ordinances 1152 and 1153.
Second.
Okay, so I'm having a motion to approve ordinances 1152 and 1153 referencing the 2022 comprehensive plan docket and associated rezones, and I have a second. What is the discussion on the motion?
He's working on it.
No, I'm not. I'm done.
Okay, I'll call for a vote then, and let's
Roll call.
do a roll call vote.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Daughtry,
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick,
Aye.
Councilmember Dickinson,
No.
Councilmember Jorstad,
Aye.
Council President Ewing,
No.
Councilmember Tagent,
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. 4-2. Right. Okay. So with that, we'll move to action item 12, which is the contract supplement for 2023 lake management. Shannon.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Shannon was unable to make it tonight.
Okay.
She's not feeling well, so I'm filling in.
Why don't you give it a couple minutes while people clear out?
Oh, never mind.
Okay, Aaron, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. For those of you in the audience, my name is Aaron Halverson. I am the city's Public Works Director. And as I mentioned, I'm filling in for Shannon Ferrand. She couldn't be here tonight. And before you, Council, we have a contract supplement for the 2023 lake management. It's essentially authorizing the mayor to sign a letter that amends an agreement with Snohomish County to monitor nutrients in the lake. What we're asking is to do this for one more year with the county before the city takes this on with its own forces. And what the county monitors is nitrogen and phosphorus and chlorophyll in the water column, essentially trying to predict or forecast the health of the lake based on a variety of factors, nutrient loading and the alum treatment that is used to bind phosphorus and make it drop to the bottom of the lake. It is a requirement of the alum treatment that was completed this year. It is the monitoring of the lake. So we're requesting that the council authorize the mayor to sign the letter that amends the agreement with the county to complete this monitoring in 2023. And we'll reevaluate using staff resources in 2024. In fact, I expect us to be there and ready to do that in 2024. That's the request. Any questions?
And I would just say, I think Councilmember Peterson is the one who asked to put this on an action item, and he's not here tonight. So I'm not sure exactly what he was wanting to question on that. I know that one of the things that we have been talking about with this contract is a partnership with the Lake Stevens Sewer District and what that would look like. And I think that's a shared position that would do the lab work as well as the collection work. But we're not there yet with them either. So
But a one-year contract allows us flexibility in the event that there's movement with the sewer district.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Any questions for Aaron? Okay, hearing none.
Yeah, wait a minute, I do have a question. So we're going in 2023. We signed this contract, lake's taken care of by the county as it usually has been, but we are going to actually try to find a way to just bring this in-house one way or the other, right?
Correct.
We're gonna do, last year we said the same thing.
Yeah, I think that between partnership with the sewer district, and I think there's also some technology options that we can really take a look at.
I think the technology, well, I think part of it can be handled by technology that we've seen. The other parts can't be. It hasn't been designed yet, but I wouldn't disagree that we could do some of it with technology. But I think that we need to, okay, we've said it before, we're gonna say it again, now let's do it.
Yeah. Yep. Steve?
No.
Okay. Marcus, do you have anything for us? Okay. So with that, I'll ask for a motion.
Move to approve contract supplement for 2023 lake management.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Okay. Motion passes. In front of you, you should have a council, or no, actually you don't. We wanted to get some input from the council on what they wanted to see at the council retreat, some topics, subjects, so that we can make sure we have a good agenda for you. Is there anything on your mind that some of the things that we do already have in mind is industrial area report, 91st discussion on 91st still, a report back on our mission, vision and values statement that we're working on. A discussion on revenue sources.
20th Street Southeast Sudbury plan. Where do we stand?
20th Street Southeast Sudbury plan. Are you talking about where
we are, where we're going with it? How are we doing? Any movements? I mean, we got Costco, that's great.
Oh, as far as possible developments in there. Okay.
How are we doing on the water line? You know, that kind of thing.
Yep.
The perennial.
Yeah, perennial 20th Street Southeast.
Right.
It's on every one of them.
Can I give an update on the water line?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the water line, Russ has been working diligently hard, extra hours over the weekend on making sure that ILA is put together, and Everett will not look at it until next year.
Are there any valves on that water line?
There's several valves.
We could shut them for a while.
There's several valves.
One, not till next year, like first week of January next year.
I didn't get a commitment from Everett, just that they wouldn't be able to look at it until next year.
So we can contact them on January 2nd or
Absolutely.
January 3rd.
Yeah,
and
that
say-
would be next year.
It'll probably be in December. Happy Christmas or
Great.
happy holidays.
I would like to encourage us to aggressively pursue that.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other topics that you'd like to see on the agenda?
I think if Sarah is in a position to, a comprehensive parks analysis and plan that like kind of.
So to address that, I was going to address that on the next thing. On the 6th, she is going to give you a high level 5-year look, correct, Sarah? And then come back with more details. She's been here for 2 months.
I just realized that she's outstanding.
She's outstanding. I know,
I'm
right.
thinking that 2 months is like 7 weeks.
I've counseled her that it wasn't done within a month. But so we're gonna give her a couple more.
So I want to ask out of just deference to her and I guess the other staff, like if that February, second week of February, 6 or.
So I think
10 weeks, if that's enough time, given what else is on the work plan.
I think I'm gonna speak for her in that she's gonna give you guys a high level look on December 6th. But I think that February would be pretty tough to do a deep dive. Would you agree?
I agree. I think it'll make more sense after you see the 5-year plan and what is in each column for the next quarter coming up and the quarter after. And I think if you guys want to put that on as a discussion item instead of me just delivering it to you, if my priorities aren't what you want them to be, we can absolutely rearrange those.
And I guess, Sarah, maybe to help us with that, I just crunched some numbers as I was looking through other cities that have, using the 10 acres per 1,000 residents metric is one metric. But looking at what we can do, because we're about half that based on what's available on the city website, and see what what efforts we can do to increase those open spaces, for our residents.
And on acreage, I agree, but when you look at park numbers themselves, we're right in line with that. So we're one's up, one's down, but absolutely, we can look into those details to say what should we be at.
Any other ideas for council retreat that you'd like to see?
I have one. This is Marcus Sargent here. I would kind of like an economic development, kind of a report, just so we know what's coming in, how much square footage we have left. If so that way we know kind of what we have left out there as far as space is concerned, and what areas we can push, and if we have any lookers at property, what kind of people are nosing around, just so we have a better idea of our arms around economic development.
Yeah, we can do that along with the industrial area report.
Yeah.
You can, thank you, Marcus. I think concurrent with that, where we are at with the sewer process, like the infrastructure relative to the spaces that we're looking at, to kind of, for example, I know we need like a quarter mile to get from where the stub is off of near the Public Works building, and there can be some significant improvement there if we run that line there. And then just looking at things like that, like short-term gains that we can get to move the needle on our economic development.
Yeah, so maybe a tabletop exercise on infrastructure.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Mayor, with the revenue sources, is that going to be forward-looking to look at potential grant opportunities that will exist at the federal level?
Yeah, I think it's really stirring up everything that's out there, whether it's fees, whether that's grants, whether that's if we create the sewer infrastructure to get to this location, what could that property owner do to enhance their property that would increase property taxes or jobs and all that? I think that's really the look we need to look at on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Mary, you got nothing? You want to talk about anything?
Not this time.
I'd like a 2-day discussion on the library. We can have that. Mary, would that be adequate?
Actually, I don't want to.
2 days, really? Only
Yeah.
2 days?
Okay.
Really? Gee, that's not fair,
When is the retreat?
It's in February.
Yeah.
So you can remote in from Bremerton.
I mean, I'll still be a property.
Okay, so we will work on a retreat agenda and get that out soon. Speaking of library, I'm looking forward to seeing their budget and making sure that our brand new library is in the 2023 budget. It'll be fun to look for and see. In front of you is next week's agenda, December 6th. Is that next week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Ooh, we got a week off.
Yeah, we got a week
What's going
off. Thank heavens.
We hold a special meeting.
on? No, I'm so.
No appetite for that.
No.
So if you would add to that agenda, the Sarah's 5-year high-level look on the parks plan. Do you have any takeaways or additions to that agenda?
I think adding the counselor interview schedule, if we can modify that item to include candidate screening process, so that we can set that up, and I think we have the STR subcommittee. I mean, we can. Yeah, we can also discuss that as well.
Okay, yep. All right, great. So with that, we're going to move into an executive session. And for those of you in the audience, we're executive session means we have you exit the room as we go into executive session. In this executive session, Caitlin, what's it about?
It's going to be collective bargaining and real estate and negotiations of a contract, and there'll be no action to follow.
So what that means is there's really no reason for you to come back unless you want to listen to us say adjourn.
Thanks for coming. Oh, man.
There should be.
Hey, Marcus, make sure to turn your camera off when you're in the other executive session. Please. Thank you.
Got it. Mayor, how much?
I added the columns again.
But you're parked up in the.
Anya, how much time do you need?
10.
10?
Just to clarify, we're gonna have 10 minutes on the clock and then we will come back and check in. Thank you.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
These guys are saying.
The council's requested 15 more minutes, so we will be back in 15 minutes.
All we need for this
Move to adjourn.
Nope, not yet.
Okay, we're back from executive session.
Move
Okay,
to,
can we get a motion to adjourn?
move to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Go out and enjoy Thanksgiving, and especially your families, and if you can serve your neighbor this week, do so.
Yeah.
And.
Thanks, Sam.